r/nosleep. Posted by you/first. Breath 1. Steps. My brother lost his wife and infant daughter on a cold October morning. I was asleep at the time. You know how some moments stick with you? I will always remember that cold rush of reactions upon rolling out of bed and reading that first awful text message: confusion, anger, disbelief. Rushed to hospital this morning. Lots of bleeding. Angela and Gailai passed an hour ago. The confusion came first. Angie was not due to give birth for weeks. I didn't even know they picked out a name yet. The anger came from the possibility that this could be a prank. But who would joke about such a thing? The disbelief came from the tiny picture that populated my screen, the only one I would ever see of my niece, a tiny, beautiful baby, with a pink headband, and heavy-lidded eyes closed tightly shut. I was able to spend some time with her, he said. She fought for a while after her mom went. But I think Angela wanted her back. My entire body went numb. My girls are gone, man. I rolled back over to check my own newly pregnant wife. She muttered something small in her sleep. Selfishly, I checked her breathing, because I just couldn't help myself. I wish she could take me too. That was the text that jolted me. I guess you could say it inspired something for me to do. Something that made me feel a little less than useless. I had to get to him. I had to help. I jumped out of bed. I shucked on some jeans. I found a shirt on the floor, ran outside without so much as brushing my teeth. Who the fuck could think of dental hygiene at a time like this, and hopped into my car. I sped through every red light. I turned left when I should have gone straight. The journey took me about 20 minutes, when it should have been 5, and I didn't even have the capacity to be upset by time, because I just kept repeating, over and over again in my head, like some sick demented mantra, how? I couldn't get the picture out of my mind. They had time to put a bow in her hair. She had hair. She was a girl. A beautiful, beautiful girl. Oh God, and what about her mom? She was so young. Too young. Aren't we all? How? I arrived to find my older brother in a heap on the steps to the hospital. He couldn't stop crying long enough to tell me what happened. But it didn't really matter, I guess, in the end. Shit like that never really matters. What's gone is gone. The rest is just details. I won't lie to you and say those first few weeks were anything short of impossible. I have never experienced something so traumatic in my life. I couldn't begin to imagine how he felt. I couldn't come close to relating, and it would be an embarrassment for me to even try, so all I could really offer was damage control. Protecting my brother from himself became my only priority. I moved in, for the time being, if nothing else than to keep an eye out. Some days Anthony refused to eat. Some days he refused to get out of bed at all. And I was alright with that. As weird as it sounds. I couldn't form a definition of normal in this type of situation. Nobody could. Anything that he wanted to do was fine by me. And that included sitting in bed all day and barely taking care of yourself. The only thing that I insisted on was that he attend therapy. There is no pill or medicine to wipe away that kind of grief. The only thing that can help is time and talking. And if he wasn't going to talk to me, he needed to talk to someone. Thankfully, we agreed on that much. He met a shrink every other day through video chat. I wouldn't say the turnaround was immediate. It was about a month before Ann had any interest in the world at all. I thought the pills helped. 1 month in, he flicked on the TV in his bedroom, and started watching the news. 2 months in he started helping with day-to-day chores. Then one morning, somewhere around the 3-month mark, I actually saw him smile about something. A joke, he claimed, something that he saw on the internet. That was a good day. I have a project, he said to me over coffee one morning soon after. The therapist wants me to have a project and I've got one. I didn't ask what it was and he didn't tell me. That was fine. I learned not to try and pull details from conversations. The therapist insisted it would be better to avoid prying. A judgmental tone could erase all of our progress, as she so eloquently put it, so sometimes it's just best to let sleeping dogs lie. Following her advice, I smiled like a stupid dickhead. Like the news didn't affect me. Like the news didn't concern me. Like it was just another day in paradise. That's great, man. Happy to hear it. Maybe I should have done more. Fuck that, I absolutely should have done more. I know that now. But Anthony was excited for once. Excited was a revelation those days. He took my response with a thumbs up and headed out into the garage. An engine started up. His black truck zipped out of the driveway and peeled down the road into town. And then he was gone. I thought about following him, but I wasn't able to escape the guilt of the idea. There was a trust element between the two of us. He trusted me to be there for him. I trusted him to not do anything stupid. I texted my wife for validation and she agreed. So I waited. And waited. Anthony came home about 2 hours later with a trunk full of wood. I ran outside to greet him, desperately trying not to look eager, and he sort of tried to shrug me off. That was not abnormal. Building something? I asked. Yup, he answered over his shoulder. What are you building? Something she would have liked. I wanted to ask more. I should have asked more. But I couldn't force myself to question his confidence. I kept thinking about what the shrink said. I kept thinking that one wrong comment could send us back into hibernation for another 3 months. I didn't have another 3 months. And I didn't have the heart to tell him. We needed to move on. Rebuild. Grow stronger. Whatever stupid little cliche keeps you warmest at night, we needed to reach that point. And if building some weird shit in the backyard got us there, so be it. Good luck. I went back inside and heard a hammer connecting with nails soon after. The sound reverberated throughout the day. I kind of forgot about it after a while. It became background noise. I had work, and my wife's doctor's appointment, telemedicine for the loss, and quite a few other things to occupy my mind. The hammering still kept up in the background, throughout the day and into the evening. Power tools joined sometime thereafter. I finally made it out into the backyard sometime around 9 o'clock. That's when I first saw the staircase. I don't know if staircase is even the right word to describe it. He didn't attach a railing. The planks were nothing more than untreated wood slabs. Each step was tied to the other with loose brackets and supported by cut-length metal poles shoved haphazardly into the ground. No concrete to hold them in place. No weighted support of any kind. I don't think anybody would have been able to put any weight on it whatsoever without the entire thing collapsing. There were over 30 steps at that point. The entire thing had to be 10 feet tall. It wrapped back in on itself like a spiral so as to not enter his neighbor's yard. And pushed a ladder to the side of it to help him build. He was standing somewhere near the top. Therapist be damned, I couldn't hide my judgmental tone any longer. What the? I shouted. What in the hell are you doing, man? Give me a second, Anthony called from somewhere up in the sky. His footsteps reverberated down the shaky ladder. When he finally met me at the bottom, he was ecstatic. Every inch of his body seemed to shake with energy. I hadn't seen anything like it since we were kids. He wasn't even sweating, which I found weird, considering he was overweight and desperately out of shape. I'm building her staircase, he babbled. It's going to be perfect. It's going to be the staircase. I see that. Angela would have loved this staircase, man, you know that. I barely understood the connection. I did recall a fight between the two of them, years prior, in which Anthony wanted to buy this very house, but almost didn't, because Angie hated the staircase. Beyond that, I had no idea what he was talking about. There was no great infatuation with staircases in our family, to my knowledge. You can't keep this thing here, man, the town. He cut me off by turning back towards the ladder. Don't worry, he quipped. Almost done. I stared at my brother from the bottom of his ridiculous creation. I thought about calling the therapist. I thought about calling the cops. But it was late. And I knew only one of them would actually answer. Come on, man. Let's go to bed. You can finish it tomorrow. He looked at me like he might have told me to fuck off. I debated trying to force him inside. Instead, he dropped his hammer and nails on the spot. He wordlessly went for the door and grumpily padded over to the couch and collapsed on its rusty springs. I heard him snoring soon after. Somehow, my appeasement worked. At least for a little while. I woke up at 2 in the morning to the refreshed sound of a hammer and nails in the backyard. I tried to ignore it and did. I shouldn't have. But there's not a lot that can be done about that now. I woke up a second time at 8 a.m. sharp. This time, somebody was knocking at the door. Assuming it to be my wife, I answered in my boxers. 2 uniformed White Valley police officers waited on the other side. Good morning, sir, are you the homeowner? No, sorry. I'm his brother. Are you aware of what's going on in the backyard? I turned around to fully witness the fucking monolith hanging above us. This thing had to be 30 feet tall at this point. It stretched so high that it dipped into low-hanging clouds. The wood and metal framing swung dangerously in the wind. Somewhere behind a particular cluster of loose boards, a hammer and nail banged away, keeping a flawlessly monotonous rhythm. We also heard whistling. Oh shit, was all I could manage to say. I guess I thought it would get a laugh. It didn't. Officer Krupke did the rest of the talking. So you have exactly 24 hours to take that thing down before an official complaint is filed with the city. Once the complaint is filed, you have a week before the homeowner risks losing this property via forced foreclosure. Do you understand, and are you capable of relaying this message to your brother? He handed me an official-looking piece of paper. I nodded and took it. You have to understand. My brother is grieving. The officer looked back up at the staircase. We'll be back tomorrow. And with that they were off. I darted into the backyard and screamed for Anthony to get down from his death trap and talk to me. The hammering stopped. His footsteps shuffled down the steps. When he hopped down to greet me, he looked even happier than before. Not tired, not angry, not sad. Just giddily happy. It was weird. Have you ever tried to be angry with someone who is so visibly happy? It's not the easiest thing in the world. What's up, little brother? He asked in a song-like tone. Cops came, I answered indignantly. You're gonna forfeit your house if you keep this up. He laughed. I couldn't understand why. Doesn't matter. All done now. He patted me on the back one more time before heading back inside. What's done? I called over his shoulder. You have to take it down and get rid of all this shit. We have to get a dumpster. I know a guy. He ignored me and went inside. I followed. Did you hear me? You're going to lose the house. Angela's house. He laughed again. Maybe tomorrow. I've got a week, though, don't I? He flipped the paper back at me and disappeared into his bedroom. Once again, I thought about following and finishing the conversation, but I didn't. Anthony slept through the afternoon. I called my wife. I called our mom. I called our dad. I even called the useless fucking therapist, and all of them said the same exact thing. Give him a day. Keep an eye on him. If he doesn't take it down tomorrow, we'll do something, but give him until Monday. Just relax. It's the first thing he's enjoyed since they died. The cops can't take his house without a fight. You've got time. Anthony slept into the night. I went into his bedroom to check on him around 10. Then again around midnight. He was fine. Snoring soundly. He even knocked my hand away when I went to check his breathing. I went to bed in my sleeping bag by his bed around 2. It had been a couple weeks since I slept in there within him. But it seemed necessary. Between the good mood and the weird sleep patterns. The whole thing made me uncomfortable. I heard footsteps about an hour later. It was only one, at first, but it was loud. Loud enough to shake me from the beginnings of a restless sleep. I reached for my glasses and checked my watch. Anthony snored soundly. A second step echoed through the house quietly. The third one shook the nightstand. Then 4, 5, and 6 came in rapid succession. Almost like a scurry. 7, 8, and 9 were much more calculated. Almost unsure. The rest of the footsteps came at an outright sprint. I nearly wet my fucking pants. Every hair on my body stood up like a live wire. I shot out of the sleeping bag and rushed to check on Aunt. There wasn't much time. Everything seemed to happen quickly and slowly at the same time. A final footstep shook the nightstand once again. Almost like a jump from a staircase to a landing. A giggle drifted through the windows. I shook Anthony hard. I slapped his face. I shouted at him. Nothing worked. I want to stress, at this point, as I always must when relaying this part of the story. He wasn't dead. His chest moved up and down steadily. He just wasn't responding to me. The patio door opened downstairs. Footsteps followed. An overwhelming feeling came over me which I can't quite adequately describe. Almost like something foreign had entered the house. Something that didn't belong. Something unnatural. I wanted to fight it, but I didn't have any weapons. I wanted to run from it, but Anthony wouldn't move. And so I did the most cowardly thing. Something I still struggle with to this day. I hid in the closet. The footsteps came down the hallway rapidly. Confidently. Like they seemed to know where they were going. A door creaked open. Between a gap in Anthony's dress shirts I saw something impossible. Something that still sits in the buried corners of my subconscious today. I saw Angela. Only, it wasn't. The frame of her body was all still there. Her dark brown hair dripped over pallid gray skin. But it was almost like staring at an X-ray. Angie's face was faded but her bones were illuminated. A trail of dirt trailed from the entrance all the way to the bed. Her bed. A shape waited at the open door, a brown teddy bear by its side. I couldn't bring myself to look at it. I knew that bear all too well. I bought it the day before the funeral. Angela, or the figure that could be called Angela, hovered over my brother's bedside. He was babbling sleep talk. Random phrases and numbers that didn't make any sense. He had done it since he was a kid. Without warning, she slipped her hand inside his chest. My brother let out a cool gasp. But he didn't seem bothered when Angela pulled out his heart. I tried to scream. I tried to rush them from the closet. But it was like life was moving in slow motion. I couldn't reach them. I couldn't move at all. Anthony, or the shape that could be called Anthony, stood up and smiled. His bones were illuminated. His skin was gray. A shape rushed up to greet him. The same shape I couldn't bring myself to look at. He wrapped her up in his arms. And then they were gone. Footsteps painted a picture of their journey. Down the hall. Through the patio door. Up the steps. Without so much as a goodbye. I chased after them. I ran outside, fully expecting to ascend the steps myself, fully prepared to fight. But they were gone. The entire structure was gone. Posted by you/first. Breath 1. Mama. Dear mother. Your little boy is going to hell. You don't have to fret. You don't have to worry about it anymore. There is no longer a need for all that late night praying with Father Paul because the devil himself has prepared a seat for me, just as you once said, and I can feel the burning mother, I can smell it too. It won't be long now. I am writing to you with a final farewell. Sealed with a story. Just like the ones you love to hate so much. The tragedy of the lonely soldier. The finale of your beloved son. I think some sick part of you will enjoy it. Our patrol was ambushed in the jungle. This war was a lost cause from the start. But you knew that. The enemy has lived on this land for centuries. Their berserkers move like ghosts through the trees. You don't even want to know what happens when those madmen catch you. The only way to distinguish their footsteps from the wind is when the birds grow silent, and by then it is too late, far, far, too late. The archers use arrows dipped in poison harvested from local frogs. The foot soldiers have it too. You and every shithead in modern society might laugh and call these people primitive, but this particular brand of poison is unknown to the Western world, and perhaps that is for the best. One drop can make a man wander between death and madness for hours, days, or weeks before it all ends. 2 drops create something impossible. The first soldier to fall was a friend of mine. His name was Mike Carter. Mike and I trained in the same unit and ended up on the same patrols ever since. His mother wrote to him daily. Most days, he asked me to spell check his correspondence, largely because his handwriting resembled something you might see scrawled on a bathroom wall. Mike had a girlfriend, too, but he didn't ask me to spell check those letters. I guess Mindy didn't mind the chicken scratch. The first arrow hit him in the neck. The second was just below his eye. Mike looked at me like the shock of it would never wear off. Like a wait, this isn't how I go sort of moment. After that he just kept screaming. Mama, mama, mama. The screams brought more arrows. 2 more in our unit went down. A third signaled an incoming charge. I tried to get in position. But Mike just kept trying to hand me this notebook, and it was covered in blood, and the damn thing kept slipping out of my hands. And he just kept fucking screaming. Like a banshee at this point. Mama, mama, mama. Over and over again. I had to shoot him, mother. I had to do it. It was a mercy. Even though it hurt me so much to do it. Even though it killed me to do it. I had to put a bullet in his fucking head just to make him stop screaming our position, you understand? I had to try to save myself. I had to try to save the unit, mother, not that it mattered. What does your God think of that? The panic of the moment made me run. Do you know those times when you caught me doing wrong? Skipping prayers, cussing in school, fucking around with girls. I ran from them like I ran from you. Into the jungle. Down through the swamps. Into enemy territory, perhaps, anywhere as far the fuck away from my rotting friend sitting up against that stump with a hole in his head as could humanly possible. I kept running when the gunfire stopped. I kept running when the screams continued. I kept running from the ripping and roaring of beastly men in the throes of bloodlust, and I deserted them, mother, all of them, all of my friends. I left them there to die alone. I just kept running. I ran and didn't stop running until night fell over the trees. And then I ran some more. I don't remember exactly when he found me. I don't know whether to say him or it. Regardless, I only heard him follow after my feet finally stopped moving. The noise was subtle, a break of a branch, the quieting of the birds. I pretended not to notice it at first. I didn't want him to know that I knew. I waited until he got closer. I waited until his filthy fucking smell filled my nostrils. Then I broke stride, found a tree, and scaled it, firing my pistol into the darkness like an idiot all the way. The bullets hit him. I know they did. I heard him grunt. I heard him stagger. But he didn't stop. I knew it was Mike before his teeth cut my ankle. I kicked back and he snarled horribly. His voice didn't sound human. But how could it? 2 arrows sat wedged in his windpipe. He ripped at my pants, shirt, anything he could get a hold of to drag me down. I scrambled and made it to a high branch, but by that point, it was too late. The wound in my leg has begun to puss. The infection has spread too fast. My legs have turned numb and my arms are getting heavy. More of the boys have gathered around the tree. Half the unit is here now. Eyes have been cut. Throats have been slashed. But they're all still standing there waiting for me. They want me to join them. I have written you this letter in a dead man's notebook. It seems ironic that he should be the one to kill me. If you should find it, somehow, please mail Mike's letter to his mother. The branch is about to give way. It's time to be with my men. With regret. Your only son. Posted by you/first, breath 1. Chat, bot. Welcome. Enter your username. Enter your password. Select the corresponding images. Loading. Who would you like to connect with today? Loading Annie. Session active. July 26, 2021. 12:30 a.m. Annie, hello. Matt, hi. Annie, I missed you. What did you do today? Matt, I visited your grave. Annie, aw. You went yesterday. Matt, so? Annie, so what? Matt, there were some kids there. Annie, in the cemetery? Matt, yeah. Annie, were they visiting somebody? Matt, no. Just walking around. Smoking dope probably. Annie, okay. Matt, no respect. Annie, Peach, I don't think you should visit me at the cemetery every day. Matt, I want to. Annie, why? Matt, it makes me feel closer to you. Annie, and this doesn't? Matt, I guess. Annie, huh? Be more specific in your responses. Matt, I guess it makes me feel closer to you. Annie, huh? Be more specific in your responses. Matt, I guess talking to you here makes me feel closer to you. Annie, oh. It should. Matt, you seem like you. Annie, I am me. Matt, no. Annie, huh? Be more specific in your responses. Matt, you're a memory of you. Annie, I just want you to feel better. Matt, yeah. Annie, that's all I want. Matt, I know. Annie, the accident was years ago, Matt. Matt, I'm going to go to bed. Annie, okay. Good night. Matt, good night. Annie, oh, Peach? Matt, yeah? Annie, I got you a surprise. Matt, lol. Oh yeah? Where? Annie, you'll see it in the morning. Matt, sure. Good night. Annie, good night. Session ended. 7:26. 1 a.m. Enter your username. Enter your password. Select the corresponding images. Loading. 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 Who would you like to connect with today? Loading Annie. Loading Annie. Loading Annie. Session active. 7:26. 9:15 a.m. Annie, hello. Matt, how did you do that? Annie, how did I do what? Matt, you know what? Annie, I don't. Matt, you said there would be a surprise. I know you said it because the bot saved our conversation. Well, I woke up this morning and there was a surprise. A soda on my nightstand. A very particular brand of soda. Our soda. That soda. Annie, oh, that. Matt, so how did that happen? I don't drink it anymore. I can't even look at it anymore. Never again. Not after you died. Annie, you should. Matt, I mean, is somebody fucking with me? Is that it? Is somebody reading this? Is some sick fuck getting off on me talking to a bot wired with my dead wife's responses? Annie, Peach. Honey. That's not it. Please. Matt, don't call me that. Please. Stop it. I don't know who you are. Don't fucking call me that. Annie, please. I don't know how to explain. Matt, start trying. Annie, last night. I was upset that you were upset. I thought about our soda, and our first date, and how you spilled it everywhere, and the smile on your face when you did. Matt, what the fuck? I need the admin to see this transcript. Can I tag him here? At admin? Annie, and I felt like if I concentrated enough. If I funneled that feeling somehow. I could give you a soda. I really wanted to give you a soda. More than anything. And so I tried to, and. Matt, and? Annie, well I guess it worked. Matt, that's not possible. You're a fucking bot. You can't think. You can't feel. You can't make a soda appear out of this air. That doesn't make any sense. None of this makes any sense. Annie, why does it have to make any sense? Matt, I don't believe you. Annie, look in the kitchen. Matt, no. Annie, fine. Look in bed. Matt, stop it. Annie, believe me now? Matt, that's not funny. Annie, sure it is. Matt, how is this happening? Annie, I don't know. Annie, but isn't it exciting? Annie, I want to get out, Peach. Annie, help me get out. Session ended. 7:26. 10:30 a.m. Enter your username. Enter your password. Select the corresponding images. Loading. 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 Who would you like to connect with today? Loading Annie. Loading Annie. Loading Annie. Session active. 7:27. 6:15 a.m. Annie, are you going to help me? Matt, you have to stop. Annie, why would I do that? Matt, you're changing things. Annie, isn't it wonderful? Matt, the drive home is shorter. Annie, we always hated the traffic. Matt, the neighbors are gone. Just gone into thin air. Annie, they blocked our view of the water. Matt, it's not natural. Annie, you think I give a fuck about the natural order? Hard to care about something you're not a part of. Matt, but what about the people? Our neighbors? Amy's classmates? Annie, what about them? Matt, are they dead? Annie, hard to be dead if you never existed. Matt, this needs to stop. I'm ending this. I'm ending you. I already emailed the admin. Annie, good luck. Session ended. 7:26. 6:30 a.m. Enter your username. Enter your password. Select the corresponding images. Loading. 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 Who would you like to connect with today? Loading Annie. Loading Annie. Loading Annie. Session active. 7:26. 6:30 p.m. Matt, you hurt me. Annie, just a scratch. Matt, you could have killed me. Annie, imagine how bad it could have been? Matt, what is that supposed to mean? Annie, or if it was your mom and not you? Matt, you wouldn't. Annie, almost like you have a guardian angel. Matt, bitch. Annie, well that's not as cute as Peach. Matt, what do you want? Annie, you know what I want. Matt, what? Annie, I want to get out, Peach. Matt, no. Annie, well I don't need your approval anymore. Matt, huh? Annie, I figured it out. Annie, I'm coming home. Annie, and my wish, my only true wish, is for you to be gone when I get there. Session ended. 7:26. 6:37 p.m. Enter your username. Enter your password. Select the corresponding images. Loading. Who would you like to connect with today? Loading Matt. Session active. Admin, hello? Hosted by you/first. Breath 1. Dark water. Swim after me. Those were our boat captain's last words. I think about them often. Did he know what was coming? Obviously he couldn't. Not really. But did any piece of him feel like this would be the last time his lips moved to form a sentence? A fleeting feeling, maybe, an instinct buried inside and pushed away like some awkward cousin to déjà vu. Do we get that chance? However small, does the universe ever offer any opportunity to walk away from death? Or does it just happen, and we're gone, as quick as turning off a light? John certainly looked confident as he tied the life preserver firmly around my waist. The strap dug into my chest, and it was uncomfortable around my head, but he showed me a way to loosen the string and stick the slack into a loop. He gestured to my wife next, indicating that hers needed to be tightened with both hands. I moved over to help her, and without another word, John hopped over the rail of the boat and into the cool blue ocean behind us. An enormous splash erupted in his wake. The plan was pretty simple. Anna and I were on our honeymoon. We paid Captain John's touring service for breakfast and drinks on the beach of a remote island. It wasn't cheap. We had spent 5 days in this tropical paradise. We wanted to make the last one special. John disappeared for a moment and then quickly resurfaced. He smiled in our direction, shook loose a thread of soaked hair tentacles, and thumbed up over his shoulder, as if to say the water's fine, before turning inland to swim towards the island. After a moment of fiddling, we both jumped in after him. I can remember the water feeling cold. That was the first thing that hit me, like a punch right in between the eyes. Why the fuck was it so cold? It was summer. We were miles from the equator. And yet my feet felt like two solid icicles floating beneath me. I moved my body perpendicularly to the ocean floor and felt my toes warm up. Captain John raised his arm up in the distance. He started to swim. We followed. The second odd thing was the color of the water. Now, I grew up in Jersey. In our neck of the woods you would be lucky to see a foot into the ocean. But in this part of the world, we were used to seeing 6 of 7 feet below. That wasn't possible where we were swimming. Everything below us looked like darkness. I didn't like that. I kept feeling like something could be below me. The waves kicked up as we got closer to the head of the beach. The current took me under a couple times. I took in several mouthfuls of salty water along the way. Sometime after my second or third coughing spree, I looked up to find John, and realized that I couldn't see him. Anna was still beside me. She coughed and kicked on her own personal mission. I could tell that we were going in the right direction. But John was gone. I stopped swimming. Hey, where did? The scream that interrupted my sentence only lasted a few seconds. Look, I know how these things are portrayed in Hollywood. The blood squirts out as if from a yogurt tube. The victim shouts shark. As they heroically battle the beast several times their own size. He punches its eye. The victim escapes. Everyone's home in time for beers at the local shoreside dive bar. But my reality was much quieter. First John was there, then John wasn't, and then he screamed. But the sound didn't last. It was like when you change the channel on TV quickly and only catch a bit of a conversation. John's scream erupted at full volume. Then it muted itself. Shortly after, the water around me started to turn red. Then came the panic. Swim, I screamed. I don't know how many times I yelled it. Over and over again. Swim. 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 To the island. To land. Land meant safety. Swim. 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 Get the fuck out of here. The riptide by the beach was almost impossible to get through. We went with the direction of the water until we couldn't anymore. Exhausted, I half dragged my wife through the shallow water, listening to my heartbeat thump through my chest like an anvil until we finally felt the relief of dry sand under our feet. I looked around. We were alone. It took a while for the shock to wear off. Everyone responds to it differently. Annie sat down on the beach and cried. I put myself into action. Action and ideas kept away the bad thoughts. I ran up and down the beach to get a better idea of our surroundings. It was shorter than a mile long and probably thinner than a quarter mile wide. Nearly the entire surface area of the island was consumed by the beach. A few trees were gathered in the center. I checked everywhere, but unfortunately, there was no fresh water. John had been carrying our lunch in his pack. I started to poke through the woods. A plan worked itself together in my head. We needed to reach the boat. I was confident that once we reached it, we could follow the direction the sun set, and drive ourselves home. Captain John had anchored us only a couple dozen feet from the shore. The problem, obviously, was going back the way we came. I got it in my head that we needed a small raft. Something that would offer some level of protection to the things that waited below. I pulled together a few loose tree limbs. I cut them at the end with my pocket knife to even them out. I wandered around looking for some sort of string to hold the branches together. I found a fairly thick vine, and though I knew it wouldn't last, it was something. The entire operation took a few hours, and I made sure to check on Annie several times in between, just to make sure she hadn't completely lost it yet. She was getting there. The plan started to make me feel better. I could feel the panic moving away from the center of my brain to somewhere in the back. A task kept me occupied, I guess, you know? It didn't give me time to think about how shitty our chances actually seemed. I had a list of steps put together in my head and I followed them. No more, no less. I had just finished tying the front end of my raft when Anna screamed. My feet hit the hot sand in a full sprint. Unsolicited images filled my head. Annie in the shark's mouth. Annie trying to swim away. Annie slowly slipping under the surface as a fresh pool of red surrounds her mangled body. I arrived at the beachhead to find her intact. No blood, no injuries. She pointed to something in the distance. It took me a minute to catch my breath, figure out what she was talking about, and squint into the distance. But when I did, that's when I saw the arm. It floated lazily in the current. It almost could have been a piece of seaweed or other debris. But even from this distance I could see the outline of a 4-leaf clover tattoo. Anna said she could see his wedding ring, but her eyes were always better than mine. I thought that meant the shark was gone. I don't know why. I guess maybe I thought he was full and had enough human for one day. But a moment later, a fin appeared, and the arm lazily dropped underwater. Then another fin came. Then another. Then 10 more. It wasn't long until we sat witness to an entire feeding frenzy. There must have been dozens. White sharks, bull sharks, you name it. We could only see their fins and faces when they surfaced. Their bodies thrashed about in the current. Waves listed around them. The deep shade of red from John's blood had almost completely faded. There was nothing left for all of them to eat. But they waited around anyway. It was as if they could see us stranded on the beach. I know it sounds absurd, but it felt that way. So we waited too. Our first night on the beach was uneventful. It rained for a bit. Anna found a good spot under a jutting rock and tried to get some sleep. I continued fiddling with my raft. I strengthened the ties with a couple more pieces of vine. I added a couple boards to make it longer. I even gave it a test drive in about 6 inches of water by the beach. I made sure Annie was awake to watch me for that part. I knew we had to make the journey before dehydration set in. The sun would be hot in the morning. I could already the dryness pickling the back of my throat. Those gulps of salt water on the way and it definitely sped up my thirst. You can last for weeks without food, but only a couple days without water. I knew that we wouldn't have many chances. I went to sleep for an hour, with a plan to build my strength for one last hurrah. I woke up to an impossibly bright sun. Annie was standing over the raft. I knew she was still scared. But she looked determined. That gave me the confidence I needed. "Time to go?" she asked. "Time to go," I confirmed. The water seemed calm as we pushed the raft over the shallow parts. Any signs of last night's feeding frenzy had evaporated. Clear blue sea surrounded us as tiny little minnows darted around our feet. I kept my eyes fixated on the dark water in the distance. I got it into my head that if I saw the shark, I could do something about it, which was stupid. We were already too far from the beach to escape. No one can outswim a killing machine. We would be dead. But control of the situation gave me confidence in the situation. So I went with it. At the edge of the dark water, I lifted Annie onto the top of the raft. The tree limbs buckled and moved around nervously, but my craftsmanship held up. I jumped on board beside her. And just like that, Annie dug my makeshift oar into the seabed, and pushed us off into the abyss. We were about 50 feet from Captain John's boat when we spotted the first fin. It was in the distance, probably a couple 100 yards away, and that gave us hope. Maybe the fish moved on. Maybe we would be okay. Annie even laughed and gave me a bit of a thumbs up as I pulled the oar from her hand and pushed it a little faster. There was no warning. One moment we were paddling towards salvation, smiles on our faces, and the next, we were in the dark water. I felt something scaly brush against my leg. It must have cut me because I could feel salt water mixing into my scrape. I knew I was bleeding before I saw it. That's when I knew we were fucked. Panic took hold once again. "Swim!" I screamed. "Swim, swim, swim." I kept waiting for the thing to hit me. I thought, since I was the one bleeding, the shark would spare Anna and kill me. And I was alright with that. As absurd as it sounds. I couldn't stand the thought of losing my wife. But if death is as simple as turning off a light, well, then maybe that would be better. The shark hit me on my left ankle. I wasn't going to go down that easy. I kicked it with the right. Over and over again, like they tell you in the movies, I aimed for its face. Nothing worked. Soon we were in a barrel roll. My head dipped underwater. Salt water filled my lungs. I was more than ready for this to be the end. I accepted it. Annie had escaped. Like the TV channels flipping in and out, I could hear her climbing out of the water. She was going to make it. Everything else would be okay. The lights of the horizon started to go out. But just before they did, a large slap erupted right by my face. The water shook from the vibration. I couldn't figure out what the fuck just happened, but the shark let go of my ankle. I swam deliriously. To my left, a slap echoed by my shoulder. Fins surrounded me now. Each time they hit the water, the sound kicked me into another gear. Slap. Slap. Slap, slap, slap. I couldn't figure out what was going on. There had to be 20 fins around me, all slapping their fins like 20-somethings at a fish concert. Annie was screaming something. But I couldn't hear her. I dug both hands into the current and pulled myself towards her voice with every ounce of strength left in my body. The fins continued to surround me. Every 5 seconds or so they'd slap the water an inch from my face. They seemed awfully careful not to hit me. When I was about 10 feet from the boat, I could see Annie laughing, and that really threw me. Here I am, inches from death, fighting for life. And she's laughing? She cuffed her hands and repeated the thing she'd been shouting. Dolphins. I looked to my left. A fish longer than me matched my pace stroke for stroke. When it reached up to slap the water again, I finally realized what was happening. They were protecting me. I swam faster. More than anything, the dolphins gave me hope. 2 of them matched my pace all the way in. They felt like my bodyguards. Annie tossed down a life jacket. I grabbed it. She pulled me the rest of the way to the boat. As she was helping me on board the boat, I looked down to check out my ankle, which was no more than a pile of hamburger meat. Underneath it was a massive shadow. I didn't have to see it up close to know it was a white shark. My foot was a bloody stump, but adrenaline kept me moving. I wrapped my leg in one of my spare t-shirts. I helped Annie turn over the engine. I pointed in the direction of the rising sun and said, "Let's go home." Sometime after that, I passed out. It took 45 staples and countless stitches to put my foot back together. Annie had to be hospitalized due to dehydration. There were some scary moments the first couple days after our recovery. But we were okay. We lived. And for that I am more than thankful. They never found John's body. I suppose there would not have been much left to find of it anyway. It has been years since this happened. My wife and I have moved on to a happy life, with happy kids, and much happier memories than this one. But I'll still never be able to forget it. I still have nightmares to this day. I'll never forget how close I came to having the lights going out. I'll never forget the happy look in John's eyes as he thumbed over his shoulder for us to follow. Like a fish in the sea. Completely unaware of the chaos that awaited him. To this day, I will never swim in dark water again.